Hi everyone, welcome back to the Behind the Business podcast. I'm Stuart Cave, powered by EXP, and today I'm joined by Tamara from Ripcord Digital. How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good.
And you?
I'm better now. So we had a little bit of an issue. We just did the whole podcast and I didn't click record. Lesson learned. Lesson learned. Tamara, why don't you take another few minutes
to
talk a bit about the business, why you're here in East Grinstead, why you love doing what you're doing, and just those little nuances about the business, how you help others.
Okay, so I am Tamara from Ripcord Digital Marketing. I moved to East Grinstead about 12 years ago, so I think around about the same time as you, from Birmingham. So this is a very, very different environment and love it a lot. I have worked in sort of business development and print and design for many, many years. And I guess when I had children, life changed. I used to work in London and found that the logistics of having two small children and travelling into London with the trains and the strikes just didn't work. Yeah. So I had to rethink. I had to rethink what I was going to do, and took a look at my skills and my background, and went into digital marketing. And for me, it's about the reason why I like it is that I know by what I'm doing, I'm able to help businesses grow and improve, and fundamentally, I don't succeed unless my clients succeed, and that I like that, and that sort of helps the local community and that sort of stuff. So that's sort of where I've come from.
That's amazing. I mean, we were just talking before about how things change a lot and how we have to adapt. And I guess in the world of digital marketing, even in the past 20 years, there's been a huge change and shift in how we leverage that. And again, given the pandemic, how have you found your business and how you've had to execute with other businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, what I found is before the pandemic, online was a thing. Like you say, it's changed a lot. And, the first website was all code and looked pretty rubbish. And now you can do some pretty amazing things on websites. Yeah. But also what I noticed that, at the beginning of the pandemic, life changed for everybody. And there was a massive shift from sort of high street shops onto digital, online services, because that's what had to happen. We weren't going out, and people still wanted to run a business and still needed to manage and still needed to, earn an income. And so it changed, and that really kind of helped me propel my business, I must say. But also, even since the pandemic, it hasn't gone back. It hasn't gone back to pre-pandemic times, and it's only ever changing. The way we do digital marketing is changing on a weekly basis. It's crazy.
Yeah, I guess that's down to people, again, not maybe from the pandemic, but how they then interact with online services, what their expectations of online services, and the way you then have to market to that.
Absolutely.
Has had to change as well.
Yeah, it is. And again, different markets, need to manage their online businesses differently, depending on sort of what market and what niche they're in. But digital can either be the primary way that people do business or do their marketing, or becomes a supporting function to their existing business. And I think, depending on what that is, it changes and how you do that. But yeah, I mean, most high streets can have a digital presence, to support them. It just depends on kind of how they want to work with that.
What I've seen is, from my experience, is the way it's still very much two separate parts of the business. That is real world and digital. And the more that gets married up, and the quicker it does, I think the more businesses will be able to leverage that for a better use.
Absolutely.
If you think of clothes shops, I gave this example before, where after the pandemic, they need to innovate, they need to change the service that they offer, whether it's a personal shopper, whether it's guides, shopping guides, style guides, and other things where people can feel more confident in shopping as opposed to looking at trends online. They can say, well, I can buy all this stuff here, let me go check it out right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually, because I think, sort of e-commerce and retail, depending on what it is, that there's obviously very transactional items, which, to be fair, is a fairly challenging market, I think, for high streets, because you know I don't know, a screw is a screw,
Yeah.
or a hammer is a hammer,
Yeah.
and you don't necessarily need to go in and see it and feel it and know it to know what that
The
actually
function of it
is,
is, yeah.
right? And so buying those sort of things online has become so much more the norm. And fundamentally, with things like Amazon, where you get next day delivery and stuff like
Yeah.
that's a very challenging market to potentially be in. But then when you start going into things like what you're saying about retail in clothing and stuff like that, is it's very hard to know whether a shirt's going to fit, or a pair of trousers is going to fit
That's
properly online. But what you find is quite regularly, people will go into a shop, they will look at it, they'll try something on, they'll be able to feel the material, they'll be able to see what it is, and then they'll leave and go and look for it online, because potentially online stores don't have the same overheads, so they've got reduced prices. And I think businesses need to be able to tap into that. So they need to do, retail businesses need to do, in my opinion, a couple of things. It's diversify so that they are online as well as high street, but also have ways of being able to extract that information, so that when somebody does come into their shop, they're not lost by some other online business. And even if that is that person then does go online and buy online through their shop. And that's an interesting way of doing it. But that's retail. You then got sort of eating establishments, which have a different way of working. Then you have service-based businesses, which work differently yet again. So it just depends on kind of the market.
But I mean, the one thing that's common throughout all this is it is all data. It is all.
Absolutely.
If I was to walk in a shop, I would be a 36-year-old male of a certain size, and I like certain colours, and that should build up, that pool of data that store could then rely on to give me certain promotional discounts.
Absolutely.
Or, oh, you might want to try this because other people who are similar like this kind of thing. And they don't realize, specifically small independent run retail places or restaurants don't realize how much data they're collecting and how much they can then leverage that for
upsell,
exactly, executing better sales, better service, preempting how much they're going to need in terms of food or stock or whatever else. The amount of data that goes untouched and unrefined, it's staggering, and I think people are just leaving money on the table when they do that, because they don't know how to execute it, they don't know how to gather it properly. And that's where I guess your digital services come in, because you can provide a platform for that.
Absolutely, exactly. And that is the benefit. I mean, what I do is I work with customers to really understand what their business is, what they're trying to achieve through their business, who their target market is, how their target market buys, so the buying sort of process of their target market, because that's different depending on who's using it, and then build sites that will create a user journey to be able to convert, because ultimately, I can build sites, but if they can look beautiful, but if they're not converting, then they may as well just be.
Yeah. But all this time, they can still be collecting data.
Absolutely.
And that's relevant. That has value.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny actually, you're talking about data, because there's ways of going about doing that, because fundamentally just somebody clicking onto your website doesn't generate a massive amount of data, and as soon as they click away from your website, you've lost that particular potential client. But so that is about, how do you start to convert those people that come to your website,
So when they first land on the website,
yeah,
what needs to happen?
Absolutely, what needs to happen. So that depends. It's do you need to convert them by selling a product? Do you need to convert them by getting them to sign up to a newsletter? Do you need to convert them by getting them to subscribe to a monthly
retainer fee
or mailing list or product based function? do you need them to phone you so that they can get a quote? You know, and again, depending on which sort of service you're in, that will be different. But you know, building a site to be able to push people down that journey and push people down that funnel is so important. You know, and actually by creating potential content on a site will drive people depending on where in the funnel they are. You know, because if people are searching for just high level information about a particular product or a particular service, you want them to find certain pieces of information. If they're ready to buy, you know, you want them to find other information and get them through that funnel and get them buying, get them clicking on your site, get them signing up to stuff, getting them to pick up that phone
with as little friction as possible.
Absolutely.
So
as easy as possible. Absolutely.